Uganda is located between latitude 4 degrees north and 1 degrees south and longitude 29 degrees east and 35 degrees east of the Greenwich meridian. That is if you're to locate in Uganda in the grid reference system. The farthest point of Uganda towards the north is Zulia, while Kisoro is the farthest point of Uganda in the south. Ishaka is the farthest town in the west, while Amudat is the farthest in the east. Uganda is located in East Africa, and East Africa is one of the regions of Africa. Uganda is bordered by 5 countries, and of which these 5 countries, some are landlocked and some are non-landlocked. For example, we have Kenya bordering Uganda in the east. Kenya is a non-landlocked country having access to the Indian Ocean, with Port Mombasa as its main seaport. Number 2, Tanzania neighbors Uganda in the south, and Tanzania is a non-landlocked country having direct access to the Indian Ocean, with its main seaport being Port Dar es Salaam. Number 3, South Sudan neighbors Uganda in the north. South Sudan is a landlocked country, and basically it became landlocked due to its creation out of Sudan, making it a different country. But before, it was one country, Sudan, having access to the Red Sea, with Port Sudan as its main seaport. But currently, since South Sudan broke away from Sudan in 2011 and became independent, it became a landlocked country. Number 4, Democratic Republic of Congo in the west. Democratic Republic of Congo is a non-landlocked country having direct access to the Atlantic Ocean, with its main seaport being Port Matadi. And then number 5, Rwanda. Rwanda is a landlocked country neighboring Uganda in the southwest. So that is the location of Uganda in East Africa. Meanwhile, Uganda is a landlocked country. So if you are asked about Uganda, the neighbors of Uganda, and they ask you which country neighbors Uganda in the east, talk about Kenya. In the south, talk about Tanzania. In the west, talk about Democratic Republic of Congo. And in the north, talk about South Sudan. Meanwhile, in the southwest, talk about Rwanda. The current capital cities of these countries neighboring Uganda as of June 2025, we have Kenya, Nairobi, Tanzania, Dodoma, DRC, Kinshasa, South Sudan, Juba, Rwanda, Kigali, and these capital cities are subject to change because some countries sometimes relocate their capital cities, but as of June 2025, they are the way I have said them. So let us look at our Uganda as a landlocked country. Uganda is a country without a coastline, and that is why we say it's a landlocked country. Uganda as a landlocked country and having challenges with accessing the seaport or coastline directly, of course, it affects its development. And Uganda, being a landlocked country, has to depend on the neighbors' seaports when importing and exporting her goods. There are 2 landlocked countries neighboring Uganda, of course. There is Rwanda in the southwest and South Sudan in the north. But other countries which are neighboring Uganda happen to be non-landlocked, meaning Uganda can access imports and exports through their seaports. And the seaports that handle Uganda's imports and exports are the seaports of these 3 non-landlocked countries that border Uganda. We have Port Mombasa in Kenya, we have Port Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, we have Port Matadi in Democratic Republic of Congo. And these seaports, not all of them are used greatly by Uganda, but Uganda mostly imports her goods through Port Mombasa, simply because Port Mombasa is nearer to Uganda than other seaports, meaning the costs of importation of goods are less than the costs of importation of goods using other seaports like Port Matadi of DRC or Port Dar es Salaam of Tanzania. But nonetheless, Uganda still uses all these seaports, but most of its imports are handled through Port Mombasa. Uganda is suffering because of being a landlocked country. Remember, there is high taxation on the overseas goods or imports. When these goods are brought from other countries, I can say they get double taxes because the country which is importing it has to tax it for using its seaport, and later on as it is coming to Uganda again it gets taxed. And so Uganda is having high prices of goods basically because they are paying lots of taxes in the imports since they are using the seaports of neighbors. There is also delay of goods in transit. When these goods are being transported from the seaports of the neighbors to come to Uganda, you find that the period that it's transported takes long. It takes longer than these countries which have direct access to the seaport. For them, the goods come directly to them, but Uganda, the goods still has to come up to those countries and find their way to Uganda. So there is delay of overseas goods in transit. There is also high transport costs when importing these goods, and you find that these goods end up having high prices. So those are the challenges Uganda faces as a result of being landlocked. We also have cases of high rate of smuggling because people want to dodge taxes, and the government loses revenue from these goods which are smuggled. And when I talk about smuggling, I mean this is illegal importation or exportation of goods, and basically people do this for reasons they have. One, maybe they are importing or exporting illegal items that the government do not allow, and number two, they can be doing it in order to evade taxes, which is not expected of a good citizen. And now Uganda suffering from being landlocked. I don't know, what can we do as a country to solve our problems? I understand that Uganda now must develop a great air transport network, most especially dealing in handling cargo. When it is having a good air transport system handling cargo, it will reduce its reliability on neighbor seaports to handle the imports from other countries. And Uganda now also must be trying to analyze and use various seaports when importing goods. Depending on the costs that are being levied on different seaports, they have to balance it and see how to maximize profits, on their goods which are imported. And I also see a need for increase in domestic industrial production. When goods are really produced from inside the country here, you'll find that these goods are gonna be charged less prices than those which are brought from abroad, and the taxes charged on them, of course, will be basically excise duty. And Uganda should increase on the domestic industrial production to help solve this problem of it being landlocked. And one of the good things I like about Uganda is a member of some common markets in the region that is helping in handling trade smoothly, if not reducing the challenges which it would have faced if it wasn't in these regional markets. Like, we have a common market called the East African Community. Uganda is one of the main countries in this common market, and it contributes much to this common market. Basically, it also benefits the country and the people in the country. The security also should be improved. We lack privacy on our goods, and because we are using neighbors seaports, our goods are no longer private. When they come, people have access and known everything about what we are importing. But anyway, that one we cannot prevent, because to charge taxes on the imports, they have to determine using the goods which have been imported. But maybe in case of attacks by some the dangerous robbers on the way, there is what we always call highway robbery, where some group of robbers, mainly armed ones, they target when goods are being transported over long distances on highways. They lay ambush and attack these trucks in order to rob the items which are being transported. And it's a rare case, but it can happen. So this transportation of imports via trucks to come into Uganda from other neighbors seaports should always be ensured that security is tight. Basically that's Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, a landlocked country found in East Africa. And talking about Uganda, what happened in Uganda in the past, what happened in Uganda is something that you got to know to understand the history of Uganda, and also talking about what's up in Uganda today, and talking about what we expect in Uganda tomorrow or in future. Basically I have to summarize it by saying welcome to the Pearl of Africa podcast.